Morning. My name's Dave. I'm one of the pastors here at Paradox, and maybe some of us have been there in that moment here today where you look around and you go, you know what, I am sure that this is over. Perhaps it was the meeting that you were invited to, and you can just tell there's something in that tone of voice when a boss says, have a seat. It could have been that moment when you're sitting in a cold doctor's office and the door closes and the doctor comes back in to deliver results. Maybe it was a time when you're sitting with someone you care about and they say that line, we need to talk. You know, a relationship is over. Whatever it is, many of us have been in that moment where we are sure, not just worried, not afraid, sure this is over. We've been there. We're convinced that's where the story ends. But today, this day, Resurrection Sunday, Easter, it tells us when something is finished with Jesus, it's not over. Because some things we have called over, but God never did. God never did. Peter understood this. The story that you just heard, Peter understood this better than anyone. You just heard his story. 3 denials. Publicly, on the night that it mattered most, his closest friend. And on Saturday, he was sure it was over. Everything was over. Not just for Jesus, but for him too. His calling, his story, all of it. Peter had sealed his own tomb. He had decided, this is done. It's finished. And some of us have done the same thing. Maybe it wasn't by a campfire, but we've looked at our marriage, our past, our faith, whatever it is, and we've said, it's done. It's over. It's finished. And when we believe that things are finished, that we're finished, that's actually a moment that can lead us down a dangerous path. It can be the beginning of an end. We maybe stop hoping. We definitely stop growing. All too often, we stop trying. And that's actually the moment that we start dying as well. We become people who are technically alive, but practically done, finished, over. We're going through the motions. The stone is sealed, and we're just waiting. We're waiting for an ending that we've already decided is definitely on its way. And we miss the whole point. We miss the whole point of this day, resurrection. The stone wasn't rolled away so that Jesus could get out. The stone was actually rolled away so that we could look in and so that we could see that the ending that we assumed wasn't an ending at all. The thing that we expected, the foregone conclusion, the thing that was certain, was actually just the beginning. It wasn't over. Jesus finished it on Friday, but the story was just beginning. Your story was just beginning. That's what resurrection is all about. That's what Easter Sunday is all about. But there are 3 lies that actually keep us from living out the truth of the resurrection in a real way. Things that we believe, but Jesus' death and resurrection came and finished. Sealed the tomb on them. They are done. And we're going to move through each one of them today using that story that we just heard. The story of Peter, a man who believed all 3 of those. And we're going to watch what happens when Jesus shows up anyway. In all the places where he shouldn't show up, that we've decided it's already over. Because when Jesus says it's finished, I hope you know it by now, y'all. It means the work is finished. Your story is so far from over. But let's set this up. Let's go back into Peter's story a little bit. We'll go back a couple of days because Peter, like most of us, started with the best of intentions. He was driven. He loved Jesus, and he wanted to follow him. That's what Mark 14 says. It starts in verse 27. All of his friends and followers, they're gathered together in an upper room, and Jesus says to them, you all, the people that followed him closest over the last 3 years, you'll all fall away. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered. Peter stands up and says, even though they all will fall away, I will not. I will not. Confident, bold, maybe a little bit arrogant Peter stands up and says, not me. Jesus looks at him and says, truly, I tell you, on this very night, before the rooster crows twice, you Peter, you will deny me 3 times. But Peter says emphatically, if I must die with you, I will not deny you. And everybody else shook their head in agreement. They all said the same. If I must die with you. Luke 22, verse 33. Peter is saying he would go to prison with Jesus. He would die with Jesus no matter what the cross. He expresses, I am willing to suffer. I'll go the distance. I'll follow you anywhere. We've been there too. We've done that. Things are good. Yes, I will follow you. But everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face, right? We've heard that one before. Because no sooner had it been said that now in Mark 14, verse 50, they're in the garden. They had fallen asleep. The soldiers come. Judas betrays Jesus with a kiss. The soldiers arrest him, and look what happens. They all left him and fled. Peter ran, hid. In this moment, this is actually the beginning of the end. Driven by fear, definitely. Maybe a little bit of selfishness. Who knows? We've all been there. We've made decisions in moments where we were afraid. We didn't know what was going on. Maybe we were operating in a self-protection. We react, we respond, and what happens? Well, the first thing is that we start to have a little bit of distance from Jesus. We've made these decisions that drive us to have, now we're still following him, but maybe there's a little bit of distance between us. Maybe that's where you're at here today. Luke 22, 54. They seized Jesus and led him away, bringing him into the high priest's house. Peter was following at a distance. Y'all say it with me. At a distance. Who hasn't made those decisions? It caused us to follow Jesus, but at a distance. Keep our distance, not too close. Why? Well, John 18. Simon Peter followed Jesus, and so did another disciple. Since that disciple was known to the high priest, he entered with Jesus into the courtyard of the high priest. But Peter stood outside the door. Stood outside at a distance. So the other disciple, who was known to the high priest, but still not to us, there's varying theories on who exactly this other disciple was. He went out and spoke to the servant girl who kept watch at the door and brought Peter in. The servant girl at the door said to Peter, you also are not one of the man's disciples, are you? Peter says, no, I'm not. We still don't know who this other disciple actually is. Maybe it's John who wrote this book. It could be Joseph of Arimathea who he lent Jesus his tomb. Nicodemus could be him as well. We don't exactly know, but here's the thing. I think that is actually intentional. Known to the high priest, but not as a disciple of Jesus. That was not known. Here we have a portrait of 2 followers who are actively trying to distance themselves from Jesus. Not look like they're with him, really. Not say, oh, no, we're not with him. We don't follow him. No. Active distance. Because why? Well, the cost of association is just too high. The closer you get to Jesus, it seems, the more suffering there is. So they put a little bit of distance. They stay a little bit comfortable. They say, no, I'm going to follow you, but not too close. Not too close, Jesus. And maybe this is starting to hit a little bit close for most of us here today. We look at Jesus and we say, I don't want what Jesus got. The beauty of it, though, is that he took it for us. He took it for us. We make decisions that lead to distance from Jesus, but we also make decisions that lead us to deny him outright. There's denial of Jesus. We'll move forward a little bit. It's nighttime in the desert. If you've ever spent some time in the desert, it's hot in the day, it's cold in the night. And so, it's getting colder, and they make a fire. And in Luke 22, verse 50, it says, when they had kindled a fire in the middle of the courtyard and sat down together, Peter sat down among them. Then a servant girl, seeing him as he sat in the light and looking closely at him, said, this man was also with him. But he denied it, saying, woman, I don't know him. No. A little later, someone else saw him and said, you also are one of them. But Peter said, man, I am not. And after an interval of about an hour, still another insisted, saying, certainly, This man was also with him, for he too is a Galilean. But Peter said, man, I don't know what you're talking about. And immediately, while he was still speaking, the rooster crowed. Peter says, I don't know him. I'm not one of them. I wasn't with him. I don't know what you're talking about. John 14, verse 26, actually even says that one of the people around the fire was a relative of the soldier that Peter cut the ear off of in the garden in defense of Jesus before Jesus picked it back up and healed him right there on the spot. These aren't strangers. He looks at him and he says, hey, you're the one, right? You're the one that cut my relative's ear off. So there's even a distancing and a denying of responsibility for our own actions here. No, I'm not. I wasn't with him. I don't know him. I'm not the one that did that. No, not my fault. Don't put me there. He denies responsibility. I didn't do the stuff that Jesus did. Haven't we been there? The decisions that lead us to distance ourselves from Jesus, outright deny him with our words, our actions, or even deny responsibility for those things. They ultimately lead to the third thing, despair. Despair without Jesus. As we follow him at a distance, as we deny him with our words and our life, we always end up to this place of despair. Why? Because sin always starts small, just a little distance, just a step away, a little further from him. And it leads us further than we wanted to go, costs us more than we wanted to pay, keeps us longer than we wanted to say. This is what sin does. It leads us to brokenness, hopelessness, despair. That's exactly what happens to Peter in Luke 22. At that moment, the Lord turns and looks at Peter. Can you just imagine that for a second? That's the moment that Jesus turns back around on trial, locks eyes with Peter. And it's like all of the words, all of the emotion, all that whole moment, just a few hours before, rush back into his brain. Oh, my gosh. Peter remembered the saying of the Lord, how he had said to him, before the rooster crows today, you will deny me 3 times. And he wept bitterly. He broke down emotionally. Oh my gosh, what have I done? Why? He blew it. He knew that he blew it. The weight of all of the things that he said, all the things that he did, all the things he didn't do. Jesus asked him to stay with him. He couldn't. Jesus said, you'll deny me. And he said, I'll never. And that's exactly what he did. He distanced himself. He denied him. And here it all catches up with him in a moment. It's the ugly cry. It just comes from the depth of his soul. And he says, oh my gosh, I'm broken over what I've done. Look at what I've done. He looks at Jesus, who now he's arrested. He's being led off. It's over. It's finished. And I think that Peter knows he's at least partially to blame. This is his fault. Maybe there's more he could have done. Maybe there's something. But here's the truth. It's our fault too. It's not just Peter's fault. It's our fault. Romans 3:23 says, even in our best intentions, even though we say, Jesus, I would never. I'm not like them. No, all have sinned. All have fallen short. We've all followed him at a distance. We've all denied him with our lives. We've all been led to this place where we go, look at the brokenness around me. It's me. The problem with the world. The reason we're in this situation, at least part of it lies in me. And I know today is Easter Sunday, but if this day is going to make any sense, we have to go back to that day. We have to sit in this moment around a campfire in the brokenness with the reality that it is actually finished and it's actually on us. This is what happened. We have to start here. The wages of all of this, what we earn, what we deserve, is death. And as Jesus is led away to his, I've got to believe that Peter had a moment where he realized, you know what? I should actually be there. That's the truth of where we sit today, too. Peter's sitting in the dark on Saturday. He's living in reality. This is not just a theory, okay? Let's set aside everything we know for just a moment. The cross was real. The nails are real. Death is real. He's not wrong. He was there. He saw it. It was finished. Over. Done. It's finished. It's not over with Jesus. This is where the resurrection actually starts to put to death the lies that so many of us believe. And here's the first one. Lie number one that we believe is that death is final. Death is final. From where Peter stood, though, death looked like it got the last word. Of course it did. Here's what Peter didn't know yet, though. The cross wasn't where death won. The cross is where sin lost. In John 19, verse 30, when Jesus says, "It is finished," and he bows his head and gives up his spirit, those are Jesus' last words. And in the Greek, it's actually one word. Telestai. What it means is really mission accomplished, purpose served. They would actually put this on paid debt receipts in the ancient world. Paid in full, nothing remaining. Telestai. It's finished. Jesus' final word from the cross is not what many of us think it is or see it as. Finished doesn't mean over. It's not defeat, it's completion. Jesus says it's completed. It's paid in full. The debt is cleared. And the effect is permanent. Permanent. Jesus' resurrection removes the distance that we have put between us and him. It removes the distance. He comes close. That's the beauty of Christmas. The Son of God became a man to live among us, God in the flesh. Jesus removes the distance between us. It is finished. No more distance. Removes our denial. When we say, yes, I am with him. I do love him. You are who you said you are, Jesus, and I follow you. Jesus' finished work removes our denial, and it removes our despair. That's why we get to say that Friday was Good Friday. It's why we get to come in here today on Easter and say he's alive. It's resurrected. It's not over. The work is finished. If you believe that death is final, you're in a spot of hopelessness. What is there? What's left? It's what brings us to that place where so many say, eat, drink, be merry. Why? For tomorrow we die, and death is final. When we believe it, that's how we live. I've kind of been there, all right? I'm reaching my mid-40s here. I sat down with a friend. I've been thinking about stuff, you know. My kids are growing up. I've been in ministry now for 20-some years. It's like all of a sudden you wake up one day and you go, man, I think I've got a lot more life behind me than maybe I got ahead of me, you know? And I sat down with my friend and I was talking about this, and I remember saying, it's not like I'm having a midlife crisis or something. Listen, I'm in ministry, all right? I can't afford no Corvette or stuff like that, all right? So my midlife crisis is going to look a little bit different. But I said that to him, and he just looked right back at me, and he goes, that's exactly what it is. You're in a midlife crisis. And there was actually something freeing about that. It's not bad. I'm just going, wow. You start thinking and feeling a little bit differently when you realize that you live most of your life with possibility ahead of you. And then you reach a certain point and you go, man, a lot of those possibilities aren't possibilities anymore. I'm not getting drafted, you know? I'm not going to be a rock star. Some doors start closing. Some chapters that you thought were still writing, turns out they're over. You might not have even liked them all that much. Just done. And listen, I know, right? I'm right around midlife, hopefully. But we lead a Bible study with some of our friends at an assisted living facility nearby. And they got a couple of years on me there still, a couple of years. All right. And we're sitting there talking just the other day. And one of them says, listen, we're all here to die. And it's just the thing. It stopped me right in my tracks. And I know how he meant it. I did. But it just made me think about this point. Like, is the end the end? Is death final? Because if it is, if the reality is we're just here to die, there's not a whole lot of hope that comes with that. What do your days really matter if everything is already finished? I know that there's some feelings of loneliness, of questioning, of doubt, of wondering, even loneliness, some level of rejection. Why am I here? What am I doing here. Most of us receive rejection as hopelessness. This moment where it's over. That's all that's left. When you start thinking that you're finished, you don't belong, you don't have a place, you're rejected. Well, Psalm 118:22 is actually the most quoted Old Testament verse in the New Testament. Matthew says it, Mark says it, Luke says it, John says it, Acts says it, 1 Peter says it. And this is what it says. The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. That place of rejection, of hopelessness, Jesus actually applies that to him explicitly. The religious institution, the world that he created, people that he loved, said, no thank you. Give us Barabbas instead. We'll put some distance between us and you. But the stone that the builder rejected has become the cornerstone. And Jesus says that's about him, but the pattern it describes is God's approach throughout all of Scripture to every single one of us as well. The rejected, the counted out, the hopeless, the done, the written off. Those are the ones that God builds on. Death is not final. I don't know if you've ever been rejected. I'm thinking of the time, when we graduated from high school, and Gwen, my wife, she tried out for the choir, the music program at Oakland University, and she was rejected from it. Can you believe that? For most people, that's the end. Said it'll take many, many years of vocal training for you to actually do this. But rejection wasn't over. She started building on that. And you know what? She did get in that program. So did Shannon, who we see up there. It was amazing to see what God built on that moment of rejection. What many people would look at and say, it's finished. Death of a dream was actually the beginning. And that is what Jesus says he does. What we think is finished and final is far from. The cornerstone is not the last thing that you put in. It's the first. The cornerstone is the beginning. What looked like the end to most was just the beginning. The thing everyone counted out, the one that they said had no future, God said, you just watch what I build with that. You watch what I build on that. I don't think it's an accident that Jesus called Peter the rock. He said, I'm going to build my church on you, Peter. You think that death is final? Think rejection means it's over? We're just getting started. That's why Peter would later quote that same verse in 1 Peter 2, verse 7. He's encouraging displaced people who feel like rejected stones. He's preaching his own story, saying, I was there. I was done. I was finished. But God said it wasn't over. The moment that Jesus' life was over, your life began. To my friends at the assisted living facility, to the midlife crises among us, to all of you here in this room, you're not here to die. You're here to live. That's why you're here today. Death no longer has the final word. It's a lie. Some of us are carrying something, though, with us that we've decided is permanent. A stone that we've rolled in front of the future and said, nope, that's done. It's finished. It's over. The cross says nothing that is built on sin is permanent. Nothing. That's the stone that Jesus rolled away. He's become the cornerstone, and the cornerstone says it's just getting started. The thing that gave death its grip has been paid off. The debt is gone. The power is broken. And that's not just wishful thinking from a pastor here today. No, that's what finished actually means. The lie is death is final. The truth is that the cross finished sin. But what was finished on Friday and Saturday on Saturday doesn't change who you are or what you did necessarily. No, for that, we have to move on a little bit. We have to get to Sunday morning. So let's go there. It's Sunday morning. Mary, one of the women that followed Jesus, goes to the tomb. She finds the stones already rolled away. And she runs. She runs to get Peter and John. And John 20 records it this way. So Peter went out with the other disciple, and they were going toward the tomb. Both of them were running together, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. And stooping to look in, he saw the linen cloths lying there, but he did not go in. Then Simon Peter came, following him, and went into the tomb. He saw the linen cloths lying there. Later on it says, and they believed. They believed. Well, what did they believe in that moment? Quite frankly, they believed the body was gone. They believed Mary when she said, Jesus isn't there. That's what they believed. But they didn't yet understand the resurrection. That's what verse 9 says. So, and I love this, John 20, verse 10. How much is this like us? So the disciples went back home. Can you imagine? I mean, Easter Sunday, resurrection. The tomb is empty. They run there. Peter looks in and goes, it's just what it says. And then they went back home. We laugh. We do. If it wasn't so true. It wasn't so true. First, Peter follows at a distance. Now, Peter goes back home. It's not an accident that it's there. Mary stayed. That's what Scripture said. Mary actually stayed. Mary waited. Mary looked. And who's the first one that encountered Jesus? Mary. Who wasn't there? Peter. Peter went back home. I think it's because Peter can't receive this. Jesus had actually even been talking about this. He had been predicting it. They didn't understand, but he had said it, and Peter can't receive it. In fact, when Peter goes into the tomb and looks, the thought doesn't even enter his mind. It's like resurrection life isn't even a possibility. Well, why? Why would it be? It had never been before. That's not a possibility. He's still living in reality. He's still living in the finished. And it's because I think the second lie is still too loud. Not only does he believe death is final, but he still believes his failure defines him. That's what he still believes. Deep down, failure is final, and it keeps him down. He can't get his hopes up. He can't receive anything like that. Have you ever been there, down, depressed, trying to raise your spirits? Well, anything that you do to try to raise your spirits just doesn't raise your soul. People can tell you it's going to be all right, but it doesn't mean a thing if you don't believe it, does it? Oh, I've been there. Yeah, but you're not me. So what do? Go back home. Why expect anything more? It's over. It's not for me. That's what that voice says. This isn't for you. You know what you did. You know who you really are. Sure, maybe you're forgiven, but you still don't have a future. That voice, I don't know if these are the things that are going through Peter's head, but they're the things that go through my head. That voice has a name, and it's not God's. It's not. This is what shame does. Shame doesn't just make you feel bad. It rewrites your entire identity around this, your worst moment, your big mistake, your bad decisions. See, Jesus actually called Peter the rock. He said, I'm going to build my church on you. And then Peter denies Jesus. But none of that stuff stopped being true. It's just that Peter stopped believing it was. Peter stopped living like it was true. He started living like the truest thing about him was actually his failure. He's the denier. Like everything that Jesus had spoken on him was somehow revoked. So he runs to the tomb, he looks in, he sees the evidence of something impossible, something too good to be true, and he turns around and goes home. Shame will always make you a spectator of resurrection. There's something in you that goes, I'm close enough to see it, but I'm convinced it's not for me. It's not real. Can't be true for me. What if the cross, the final chapter of Jesus' life, but it's actually the first chapter of yours, resurrection. Colossians 3:1 says this. So, if you have been raised with Christ, seek the things are above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. You notice what it says there? It doesn't say, so if you've risen above your past, if you have risen above your upbringing, if you've risen above addiction or your failure or whatever else it is. No, it says, if you have been raised. That's passive. For those of us that like to do things and accomplish and work hard and earn, this isn't one of those things. What you and I earned was death and the cross. We earned the finished. What was done for us, earned for us, is resurrection life. And if you have been raised with Christ, that's who you are. You're not what you've done anymore. This is who you are. It's who Jesus says you are. What he has done on your behalf. That's the way that Paul writes this in Colossians 3:1. It's something that happens to us. It's passive and it's permanent. And it's the way that he always writes all of his letters. There's the identity piece first and then the imperative. This is who you are, so live it out. We do the opposite, though, don't we? This is what I've done. This is how I've lived, so this is who I are. No, the resurrection reverses all of that. And what we've decided is permanent and true, Jesus says, no, that's not final. Your failure doesn't define you at all. My victory defines you. My life defines you. Resurrection is not the final word, or it's not the final reward for you getting your life together. No. It's where you start again. You didn't raise yourself. You were raised to life with him. That means your identity isn't something that you rebuild from the rubble of your worst moments. No. It's something given to you by the one who walks out of the tomb. But a whole lot of us here today, we're doing exactly what Peter did, right? We show up, we take a look in the tomb, he's not there, and then what do? We go back home. Some of us are ready to do it right now. I hope he's wrapping up soon, right? Show up. Maybe you even ran here. You're like, come on, we got to go. It's starting. You run inside, you take a look in, go back home. Why? Because sure, Jesus raised from the dead, but what does that have to do with me? What does that change for me? You're convinced this isn't for you because you know what you know about yourself. That's not who Jesus says you are. Your identity isn't built on your worst chapter. It's built on the one who named you before you earned it. Because you and I can't anyway. The lie is my failure defines me. The truth is that the resurrection started new life for you. Your identity is not built on it. It raises a question, though. All right, maybe I'm not finished. Maybe I'm forgiven. Maybe it's not over. But maybe God's still done with me, right? All right, I show up and I'm forgiven and it's not over. But then what? Well, that's lie number 3. God is done with me. God is done with me. Brings us to another campfire later on in John 21. When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Peter again, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? He said to him, yes, Lord. You know that I love you. He said to him, feed my lambs. He said to him a second time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? He said, yes, Lord. You know that I love you. He said to him, tend my sheep. He said to him a third time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter was grieved because he said to him the third time, do you love me? And he said to him, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. Jesus said to him, feed my sheep. 3 times, Jesus asks, do you love me? 1 for every denial. It's not Jesus rubbing it in. It's Jesus doing something completely intentional in this moment. He meets Peter at the place of his failure. The sights, the smells, the sounds of that campfire. I wonder what it brought back. But Jesus meets him right there in that place. And he doesn't cancel him. He doesn't lecture him. Nope, he restores him. And he gives him purpose. He gives him purpose. The resurrection gives you and I new life and new purpose again. Feed my lambs, tend my sheep, feed my sheep 3 times. It's a calling that's renewed at the very place that it was abandoned. Isn't that true for us? Many times, that place of great pain in our life is actually the place that Jesus wants to redeem and restore and do a great purpose. He has great purpose for you in that place of great pain. He redeems it. He restores. And years later, Peter, this same fearful denier who wouldn't have been caught dead in the house of a Roman centurion just days before, is now actually right there in Cornelius' house. This is later on in Acts 10. Why? Because something had happened to him that blew the walls off of his understanding of who God was and who God was for. Acts 10. It is a decisive moment where the early church crosses the Jewish-Gentile boundary. Before then, it was a common understanding. The Jews are God's chosen people. They live in relationship with him. Or maybe even just the holy people are the ones that can go into God's presence, that could follow him, follow a rabbi, the special, the elite. Certainly not the deniers, the distancers, the despaired. It's one of the most significant turning points for the church in the entire New Testament. Peter stands up in the house of a Roman centurion in Acts 10:34, and he says, I now realize how true it is that God does not show favoritism. Everyone who believes in him receives forgiveness of sins through his name. Y'all say it with me. Everyone. Everyone. There's weight in that word. Everyone who believes. The man that said, I don't know him, is now telling a room full of Gentiles who didn't have a chance. They were the rejected ones. We were the rejected ones, the outsiders, the no good, the finished, the over. He's standing in that room and saying that the grace that found him is available to every single person alive. The resurrection didn't just restore people. Peter, it expanded him. It expanded him. The word everyone carries enormous weight from a man who needed it to be true about him first. Maybe that's us today too. Peter is preaching his own story. Is it yours? Is it yours? Does it include you now? Peter says, I now realize, because of where I've been, because of my failure even, that God is for everyone. Jesus, that's what we started this service with. That Jesus is for everyone. Not just one political party, not just the people that look like they've got it together. Everyone. Everyone. And that's what grace actually does. And we get this wrong. This is another thing we get wrong all the time. We think that grace just means that God overlooks what we did. It's like on the cross, God goes, all right, we'll pretend that never happened. We'll just look past that. That's not grace. That's amnesia, right? No. What Jesus does with Peter is something completely different. He doesn't pretend the denial didn't happen. Do you notice that? He addresses it. He walks right into it. He confronts it. That's what Jesus does with our sin. He took it. He bore it. It's on the cross. It was real. It's dealt with. He said, it's finished. But it's not over. It's not over. Walks straight into it and he doesn't bury it. He redeems it. The lie is that God is done with me because of who I am, because of what I've done. No, the truth is that Jesus isn't done with me yet. Grace does not erase your story. Grace rewrites it. It rewrites it. And it wasn't the first time that Jesus had rewritten a story over a meal. This is the most important story. It rewrites every story, your story, my story. And we get wrapped up in his story. In 1 Corinthians, it says, for I received from the Lord what I also delivered to you, that the Lord Jesus, on the night when he was betrayed, took bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and said, this is my body now. That story that they were remembering, the Passover, when they were freed from slavery, says now it's about me. We're rewriting the story. And it includes you. It's for you, for us, all of us. It says, do this in remembrance of me. Remember that my body, Jesus says, was broken for your brokenness. That distance, that denial, that despair that you felt, I took it on me. And in this moment, in this meal, remember that I said, when my body was broken, it was broken for you. Remember that. Remember that. Come into the story. Jesus says he's rewriting it. And in the same way, he also took the cup after supper and saying, this cup is a new covenant in my blood. We don't use that word a lot, covenant. Here's what it means. It's a promise. It's a promise of future relationship. That the brokenness of the past is dealt with and finished. And anything that comes in the future doesn't change a thing. There's a new covenant that's not built on the blood of our own sacrifice. It's built on the blood of his. He says, this is my blood. New covenant in my blood. Do this as often as you drink it in remembrance of me. Remember that he finished the work and your story's not over. There's more. God's not done with you yet. For as often as you do, when we come back to that place, we remember who Jesus is, what he's done, and who we are, and what he has for us to do. When we remember that, we proclaim the Lord's death until he comes. We proclaim it with our lives to everyone else. That is what we're doing here today. We're proclaiming. We're remembering and proclaiming. Jesus finished the work. Maybe you just need to take a moment to reflect on that and repent. Man, he finished it for me. I don't have to keep distancing myself. My denial, my despair, whatever it is, the death that I deserved, Jesus finished that. So we say, thank you. Thank you, Jesus, that you finished the work with your body. But also we remember the blood. but he shed it to invite us in, to give us identity, hope, purpose, to restore us, redeem us, rewrite our story again, so we can receive that and proclaim it. His grace restored us. Jesus finished the work. So your story, our life could get started as we come forward. Let's remember that and proclaim it as we take communion together.